right, this is Chris Rubio of Rubio Long Snapping in Northern Idaho. With me, we've got Dr. Conor Hogan, way far away in Ireland. Give me the city one more time.
It's Galway, Chris, Galway, Ireland, the west.
How do you spell that?
Well, it's actually spelled Galway. I probably pronounce it with a French.
That's the way I'll pronounce it. All right, so here we go. We're coming on conversation number 2. Spoke to a couple parents out in the United States, and here's where we're going to go. We're going to go with, it's kind of broken into 2 to 3 topics. Number 1, we're going to talk about how to deal with a, let's say, angrier coach, maybe a yeller. Part 2 is going to be how to deal with a coach that doesn't really say much at all. And number 3 is going to be exactly what parents can do to kind of be the facilitator, the middleman, the liaison in between all 3 of those, or all 2 of those, excuse me. All right, so here we go. Doc, I don't know how much you know about football, American football, with throwing the ball, not kicking it with your foot, and all that good stuff. There tends to be usually two main types of coaches. You've got your angry, aggressive coach that tends to yell a lot, and then you've got your more passive coach, which is just kind of a little bit more laid back, and especially with long snappers, doesn't tend to say a lot. We're going to talk about the angry coach first. All right. So I'll say a quick story. When I first started playing football, tackle football was my freshman year. I was too heavy to play in Southern California, United States. It was done by weight, and I was way too heavy. So my first experience with tackle was my freshman year, 9th grade year, 14 years old, 15 years old, big chubby kid. I go out. They say, what position do you want to play? I said quarterback, because that's what I played in flag football, which is a little bit more timid. They said, Rubio, you're 6 foot, you're 260. There's 0 chance you're ever touching a football. Again, ironically, I touch one every single day now. And you're going to be the lineman. Okay, I'm putting on my pads. I literally don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm looking to the guy next to me in the locker room, kind of like, where does this pad go? Where does this pad go? We go out to the field. My coach was kind of like a Marine-y, a soldier type. And I remember he yelled at me non-stop from, I'm going to go with August all the way through December. I tried to quit. I remember about 10 times throughout that season in my head and speaking to my mother saying, this is the stupidest sport. I will never play this again. I cannot stand it. And she said, you just need to get through it, Christopher. You need to get through it, Christopher. You can do this. If you get through this, you'll get through anything. And she was actually right. But when this coach contacted me, or just yelled, I'll just say yelled, immediately, and this is where I want you to jump in. Tell me what happened where my mind went, boom. I turned him out. I turned him off. Done. Game over.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's several points there you're bringing up that are really interesting, both from both the player, the athlete, and the youth's point of view, and also from the coach's point of view as an adult and stuff. The background to this really and truly is wired into us already in our brain. So there's a part of there's all the different parts of brains. I talked before about how 20, 30 years ago, there was an awakening of a decade where they learned so much about the brain. And now they have all these brain scans. We heard of brain scans, and now there's fMRIs and different types of looking and imagery of the brain, and it's going to get better, and we're going to see more. What they do is they test people under pressure. They test people at different times. They ask people to think about certain emotions, and then they can see what's happening. It's phenomenal, really, what's happening. But one thing that's etched in and what's hardwired into us is this real old style part of the brain. It's going back to when we were apes. It's this called the amygdala, right? And what the amygdala, without going too much or too far into it, is this is where, it's the central part of our brain, where it's wired to everything down through our nervous system, of course, but it senses fear, right? And when we talk to that amygdala, is that we actually, if we induce and transfer fear. Now, in a coach shouting like that, especially if they're not, a player is not, an athlete is not looking towards them or facing them. And why would they be, So that means that when that happens, it's not a good thing, because the athlete is actually doing what perhaps the same coach or other coaches have told them to do, which is concentrate, keep your eye on the ball, and so on. Keep your eye on the game, even if you're not in it. And if for obviously a long snapper, where they're less in the game, they're going to be concentrating more because their job is so critical and important. So if a person is essentially a coach is screaming at them, roaring at them, what they're trying to do, and it's really important for the player to understand this, the athlete and the young person, is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to transfer their energy. So if we're all out there and we're playing ball, and a lot of coaches are playing ball and they play ball and they have played ball, usually coaches are older, they're over the 30, 40 mark, and they have played ball. Now, they mightn't actually have the ability that the young person has, the long snapper has, but by way of actual being a physical communicator, by way of using the ball and being used to play with the ball themselves, unless they're a professional communicator in some way in their own professional lives, they're basically using and transferring the energy through aggression. And that's what yelling is. So in one way, it's a frustration that they may have from their own childhood, from their own playing days. It may also be a frustration where they're not able to actually transfer it, and literally what you do with a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old and just grab their hands and say, here, put your hands here on the ball and do this, do that. So physically, if the player's inside the line and the coach is outside the line, they need to actually get ahead, and their fear and their amygdala, what's happening in their part of the brain, the ancient part of the brain, for them is they see the ball coming at a certain region, or they know the score, and they know that the player's under pressure or the team's under pressure. Their passion for the game, or their passion or care for the individual, might actually be ignited through fear. So it's going back to what we said beforehand, which is this.
So it's like a double fear thing. So as soon as coach starts yelling at me, I'm fearful, but they're fearful that I'm going to make the mistake.
Exactly. So it's like a trip switch. You've got all these great things happening. Everybody's calm. Everything's well. All the planning is going well, and suddenly it comes to this clinical part of the game where this one player, does this one particular skill, and suddenly the trip switch goes in the coach's head. And they might be driving home and thinking, why did I say that? They might even remember it. This is the thing. Mm-hmm. We've all been at games in all sports where we've seen people wound up, just even looking around you at games, and you can see
all fired up.
Yeah, all fired up, and they're so into the game, and literally they can't help themselves, and we've all seen that. But that's exactly what's happening from a neurological point of view. And then the thing is, the receptor of that, of course, the athlete, should they receive it, and what should they do with that? Because they might literally have coaches that are always like that, but they might think to themselves, just like you said, I'm not good at this game because of the personality here. I just don't feel it like that. But here's the thing.
Okay, go ahead.
That's the player we're looking for. We're looking for a calm player. Whether it's long snapping or whether it's any other sport, golf, we looked at the Masters, the last putt on the last 18th hole of the last day. We want somebody who's cool-headed.
Okay, calm. So, your accent got a little thick on that one. I wanted to make sure I heard it. That's awesome. So you're looking for the calm player. So I'm the guy who gets yelled at. I'm not much of a yeller. When I got yelled at, like I said, I tune them out. The explanation I always use is, I heard Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. Is that the right thing to do? Because you're not going to go through life without having people that yell at you, whether it's a coach, a boss, maybe a significant other, who knows, brother, sister. Is that the proper response? Or was I being too timid and fearful and basically a sissy? Or should I have stuck my chest out a little bit? Is there a proper response?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, there can be that particular response to that individual coach, because look, there's going to be more than what's happening with the yelling that's going to, be received by the young person, by the player. Because the reality is, remember what we just said there was that the coach that's yelling, he's being motivated by the game, by what his perceptions of how the game is going, how the player is prepared, how they're going to play the ball and so on. But in reality, that's not their personality. They don't go around yelling all the time. Very few do, right? So the thing is, it depends on the relationship you have before that with the coach and the player. Them two people have in that relationship. And that could be, for example, in high school, they might be their teacher in maths or in English or something. And then they step onto the football field, and then they see the coach infuriated. And then that player will be wise enough, even at 15 years of age, to just blank it all out, because he knows he's the fun English teacher. He's passionate about English as well. He's calm. He talks about poetry, which is romantic and stuff, totally different. So it depends subject by subject. But if you don't know the coach and the relationship is not there, then of course you're going to be determined, probably even as a very calm young person who is with it, who has the skills and has the perfect mentality for game to actually eventually fire back. And that's no good, because then you have quarrels and all of this. So that's crazy for a team.
Okay, so this this whole mindset is amazing. So bottom line, you could easily, it goes back to even the coach's somewhat childhood, basically probably how they were raised, how much passion they have, how much control they can, take over themselves. And it also takes the player knowing exactly what type of human being this is, and whether it's okay to, stick your chest out a little bit. I mean, you don't want to be rude or disrespectful, but also learning how to either come back a little bit or just wah, because you're going to deal with people like this your entire life.
Well, look, I presume when you're saying wah, 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 it's kind of like you're turning down a switch insofar as.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I'm the player. I'm not going to react to that. That's absolutely one fantastic technique, what you're saying there, because I mean, the good player, the great player is going to go out in front of thousands, and they're going to have to blank out that sound. They're going to have to blank out that atmosphere, that occasion. So that, you can't, there's going to be people in the stand, like you just said, in the crowd that are going to roar abuse at you. That's life. That's what happens in pro sports. So there's that. And exactly what you're saying, it can go back to, of course, the coach's own past, to their childhood, to how they were dealt with themselves and how coaches communicated to them.
But here's how the kid was raised as the kid was raised as well. I mean, because I remember at UCLA when I was there, I've explained it several times, I was the guy that just tell me what you want me to do, man. You want me to do this, do that. I'm not an idiot. I can figure it out. But there was other players, very, very good friends of mine, that if you told them that way, they did not respond. But if you said some very elaborate phrases and words and really almost went right at them, almost physically, they loved it. They were phenomenal. I mean, they were, okay, you're about to rip my head off. Hey, everyone. So there's just basically two types of coaches and two types of athletes. And you basically have to find out what type of coach you're dealing with and what type of human being you are.
Exactly.
Is there any way to find that out on a quicker note without getting brain, testing thingies?
Well, it's down to rapport of the team. It's down to rapport of, obviously, the skills and the knowledge of the coach. And it's also down to, naturally enough, interest, passion for the game. And it's all those things mixed together that actually, binds that. But the reality is, you will always have different personalities. We'll always have incidences in games and things that happen that are unknown or unplanned for. But the reality is, there's a big study out there, for example, and it's a famous study from years and years ago. And essentially, it looked at over 200 athletes across 15 sports. And they found that basically that kind of negative, and that's essentially the way it is perceived, is that, yelling coach is a negative between the coach and the athlete. And this is a contributor to anxiety in a player. So the point being, if you get a player that's 15, 16, 17, 18, and he's really good and he's doing everything right and he's calm and all of that, one coach's communication through yelling can actually turn them in from being a calm player to, by the time they actually physically make it into the NFL, that they're going to actually hate the game or respond in a bad way to even just the crowd or, any coach.
That is wild. Coaches, I hope you heard that. You're allowed to be aggressive with certain people, but understand the implications, that it can have in the long term, not just even the short term, but the long term, with all your student athletes, no matter what sport, no matter what genre, no matter, that's a wild statement. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, the thing is, Chris, I mean, the beauty of your game over there is that, yes, it's professional, but it's one of your national sports, and everybody wants to play it and everybody wants to be great at it. And the beauty is, obviously, at the lower levels, you're going to need adults that are volunteers and parents and so on. And it's not to kind of look badly on that at all. It's to actually complement that and realize that you as a coach have huge responsibility in shaping somebody, not just as a player, but as a person as well.
I agree 1,000%. So that's going to wrap up segment one. Thank you, Dr. Hogan, all the way over in Ireland. I'm Rubio. We're signing off for episode number 2.